I still remember the way the dust floated in that room. Like it was suspended, like it didn't want to land. That's the first thing I noticed about her classroom. Not her. Not yet. The second thing I noticed was the quiet, not silence, just quiet. The kind that wraps around you and makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, nothing loud will happen today. I like that. I needed that. She walked in late, not flustered, not apologetic. Just there. Like the way a song begins mid-note when you didn't realize it had started. She was wearing black. Nothing dramatic. Simple. Clean lines. No jewelry. But there was something about the way she stood behind the desk that made me sit up a little straighter. Not because I wanted to impress her, not yet, but because I felt seen. She glanced around the room, then settled her eyes on me just a second too long. That's how it began. No fireworks. No music. Just stillness. She wasn't really my teacher. Not officially. I had dropped out of the literature program 2 semesters ago. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't focus. But I still showed up. Sat in the back. No one noticed. Except her. She never called me out. Never asked why I didn't raise my hand. Never asked why I always left first. But she nodded at me when I walked in, a small thing, nothing showy, and I started to look forward to that nod like it was something warm. She smelled like old paper and something floral I couldn't name. The kind of scent that stays on your shirt long after the hug is over. Not that she ever hugged me. Not then. It was after class one Thursday. She was gathering her things slower than usual. Everyone else had already left. I lingered by the bookshelf, pretending to read, not even pretending well. She didn't say anything for a while. Just moved around the room, organizing papers that didn't need organizing. Then she said, "You always sit in the back." I shrugged. "Habit." She nodded, like she understood habits that don't make sense to anyone but you. "I never graded your name," she said softly. "But I always read your eyes." I didn't know what to say to that. She walked closer, not close enough to touch, just close enough that I could hear the shift in her breathing. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. And for some reason I asked, "Do you ever feel like you don't belong in your own life?" She didn't answer right away. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Then she reached for the paper I was holding, a book list, and her fingers brushed mine. It should have been nothing. But I didn't move. Neither did she. And then she said it, the line that has lived under my skin ever since. "I don't feel like a stranger when I'm with you." She looked at me like she was afraid she'd said too much. Like she wanted to take it back, but couldn't. And I just stood there, pretending I didn't feel my heart twist a little. She let go of the paper, but not right away. Her hand hovered there, then dropped to her side. Then she walked to the door. Paused. And looked back. Like she was waiting for something. Like maybe she wanted me to say something first. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. She started letting me stay after class. Not with permission exactly, she just stopped packing up so quickly. The room would empty, the door would stay open, and we'd talk in that space where nothing official existed. Not teacher. Not student. Just 2 people pretending it didn't matter. One afternoon, she sat at the edge of her desk, sipping cold coffee from a paper cup. I was on the floor, cross-legged, flipping through a copy of the bell jar someone had left behind. "There's too much truth in that book," she said. I looked up. "That's what makes it good." She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "You ever love someone who only ever gave you half of themselves?" she asked, almost absently. I didn't answer. Not really. Just nodded and looked back down at the page, but my hands were trembling a little. She wore her pain like perfume. Subtle. Present. Unavoidable, if you got too close. Sometimes she'd mention a name, never twice. A man who didn't listen. A choice she didn't undo. A silence that grew so loud she had to leave her own house to breathe. I started noticing the details. The way her wedding ring had left a faint indent she still rubbed with her thumb. How she paused whenever she spoke about the future, like the word didn't quite fit in her mouth anymore. I wanted to ask her what she'd lost. But I also didn't. Because whatever it wasn't gone yet. It lived in her posture. I offered to carry her box of old exams to her car once. It was heavy, unnecessarily so, and she tried to laugh it off. "Chivalry isn't required," she said, not looking at me. "Not chivalry," I said. "Just something to do with my hands." Her eyes flicked toward mine. A beat too long. She handed me the box. Our fingers touched again. This time, we both noticed. In the parking lot, she fumbled with her keys, and they dropped between us. I bent to pick them up, and when I looked up, she was already watching me. She didn't look away. Neither did I. It should have been fine. A normal exchange. Nothing crossed. But the air between us felt pulled tight, like a thread stretched too far. She took the keys gently. Her fingers lingered on my palm. "Thank you," she said softly. I nodded. But I didn't move. And neither did she. Then, "Would you ever audit a class again?" she asked. Lightly. Too lightly. I looked at her. Really looked. Her voice said one thing. Her eyes said something else entirely. "Maybe," I said. "If I thought I'd actually learned something this time." She smiled, but her breath hitched. She turned to open her car door. But before she got in, she paused. "I never said you had to leave." Then she got in. And drove away. Leaving the door open in a different kind of way. We were reading poetry that day. Just the two of us. A forgotten copy of Rilke she pulled from her shelf, dust catching the sun like sugar in the air. "Read this one," she said, sliding the page toward me. Her finger brushed mine, not accidentally. "Not anymore." I read slowly. Voice low. Her eyes didn't leave my face. I felt warm. Not in the good way. The kind that makes your collar tight and your heartbeat untrustworthy. When I looked up, she was too close. "I used to love this one," she said, her voice quieter now. "But it feels different when you read it." I laughed nervously. Tried to look away. "It's just words." "No," she said. "It's how you see them." She reached over to fix something, my sleeve, a button, I don't remember. But her hand stayed. Resting on my shoulder. Just barely. I didn't move. Neither did she. "I should go," I said. She didn't respond right away. Just looked at me, like she was trying to read a thought I hadn't spoken. "You always say that," she whispered. I stood up too fast. My chair scraped the floor. She flinched, not visibly, just something in her eyes pulled back. "I'm sorry," I said. It's not." She nodded, folding her arms like a shield. "I know." The silence sat between us like a third person. Loud. Uncomfortable. Honest. I walked toward the door, hand on the frame. Didn't open it. Then I turned. "You ever think maybe we met too late?" Her face changed. Not a smile. Not pain either. Something more tired than both. "Too late for what?" she asked. "For this to mean nothing," I said. She didn't answer. Just stared at me like I'd knocked the breath out of her. Her phone buzzed. She looked down. Screen lit up. The name David flashed. Her hand trembled slightly before she flipped the phone face down. "Your husband?" I asked. Before I could stop myself. She nodded. "Once. We're not what we used to be," she said. "But it's complicated." Of course it was. She walked past me toward the window, touching the edge of the curtain with her fingers like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I don't want to ruin you," she said suddenly. "You're not," I replied. "You're just making me feel alive for the first time in months." Her back stiffened. She turned around, her eyes glassy, lips parted. She took one step toward me, just one. and then she stopped. I can't, she whispered. I nodded, even though I didn't understand. We stood there, the space between us thick with everything we didn't say. She looked down at her hands like they weren't hers. And I realized I wanted to reach for them more than I wanted anything. But I didn't. Not yet. I knew I shouldn't be feeling this, but I was. She hadn't come to class that week. Not Monday. Not Wednesday. Not today. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't enrolled. I wasn't supposed to care. But by Thursday afternoon, I was standing outside her bookstore. It was raining. The kind that doesn't pour, just lingers, soft, annoying, wet at the collar. The sign said closed, but the light was on. I hesitated before knocking. She opened the door halfway. She looked tired, in a sweater 2 sizes too big, hair undone. Not like I'd ever seen her. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know, I replied. But I am. She exhaled like the sound itself cost something. Then she stepped aside. The place smelled like cedar and old pages. The kind of place that holds onto its history. She moved slowly behind the counter, picking at a tea bag, avoiding my eyes. I took some time off, she said. Needed to breathe. I nodded. You okay? I asked. Her lips twitched. You don't have to ask that. I do. The kettle clicked off, but neither of us moved to pour the water. She leaned on the counter with both hands, head bowed. And then she said it. I dreamt about you. My heart kicked against my ribs. She looked up, almost ashamed. It wasn't appropriate. I stepped forward. You think I haven't? That got her. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Just the air between us, pulling tight again. I'm not a boy, I said. Stop treating me like I don't know what this is. You don't, she snapped, louder than she meant. You think you do, but you don't. I stared at her, throat dry. I'm not asking for forever, I said. I'm just what? I feel you. Every day. Even when I try not to. She stepped out from behind the counter. Her hands were trembling. This isn't love, she whispered. It's loneliness. We're two people who don't know where else to put ourselves. I nodded, but it hurt. Then why can't I stop? I said. Why do I keep hearing your voice when you're not there? She didn't answer. She was close now. Too close. I don't want to be something you regret, I added softer. Her eyes burned into mine. Then leave. I froze. But I didn't move. And neither did she. Her voice cracked. Please, don't make me choose. And I whispered it before I could stop myself. Then don't. Her hand brushed mine. Not by accident. I stepped in. Close enough to hear her breath shift. Close enough that I could kiss her. But I didn't. Not yet. She looked up at me, eyes wet, lips parted, and said barely louder than the rain outside. Don't go. Then silence. Tighter than any touch. We didn't kiss. But we didn't need to. That moment, the way her voice caught, the way she didn't let go, it felt louder than anything lips could say. And I stayed. For a while. We sat in the back of her store, drinking lukewarm tea and saying things in half sentences. Not touching. Barely moving. Just being. She laughed once. A soft, surprised sound, like it startled her too. God, she said, you make me feel younger and older at the same time. I smiled, but my chest tightened. Because I knew something was coming. I just didn't know what yet. It was almost dark when I said, You don't talk about him. She didn't ask who. She knew. She didn't answer right away either. Just stared at the cup in her hands. Then, I still live with him. My breath caught. Not because I hadn't imagined it, but because she'd finally said it out loud. He moved into the guest room. She added like that made it better. It's a house with no air now. I nodded slowly. She looked up. You're angry? No, I said. And I wasn't. Not really. Just hollow. Then what? She asked. I'm tired, I said, of pretending this is simpler than it is. She touched my arm, barely. I never meant to lead you anywhere. You didn't. I swallowed hard. I followed. The silence that followed felt final. Not cruel. Just honest. I got a job, I said quietly, because I couldn't hold it anymore. Out of town. She blinked. When? End of the month. A pause. Then she looked away, brushing her hair behind her ear like she needed something to do with her hands. That's good, she said. You should go. I didn't say I wanted to. But you should. The way she said it, firm, almost rushed, made something inside me clench. I think I could have loved you, I said. Her eyes closed for a moment, like she was bracing against wind. Then she opened them again, and they were glassy but dry. You don't know me, she whispered. Not the parts that would ruin you. I don't care. She smiled, not out of joy, but as if the sentence itself proved I was still too young. Outside, the rain had stopped. But neither of us moved. I stood by the doorway. She stayed in the shadow of the bookshelves. She looked at me like she was already missing me. I looked at her like I still didn't believe it had to end. And then, she said barely above a whisper, maybe in another life, we'd have had time. I wanted to ask, why not this one? But I didn't. And she didn't answer either. We just stood there, halfway between staying and leaving. And the door stayed closed. My teacher held my hand and said, I don't feel like a stranger when I'm with you. Part 6, the climax, told from his perspective. She came to find me. I was shelving books at the small library 2 blocks from campus, not thinking, not breathing, just moving through a day I wasn't really in. When I turned and saw her standing there, damp from the mist outside, scarf pulled tight around her neck, I didn't say her name. I didn't need to. We both just stood there. Then she said quietly, I thought you might hate me. I shook my head. I tried. Doesn't stick. She smiled. Just a flicker. The kind that barely survives being real. We sat across from each other on the worn couch in the corner, between 2 dusty shelves and a humming heater. She didn't speak at first. Just stared at the floor, rubbing the edge of her thumb like she was trying to feel something through her skin. Then, I'm scared of how much I want this. I looked at her. Really looked. No more hiding. No more pretending it wasn't bigger than both of us. I want you, she said, finally meeting my eyes. But I don't know how this can work. My chest tightened. Then why did you come? I asked. Because if I didn't, I'd never stop wondering what we could have been. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I leave in 12 days. I know. I wake up and you're the first thing in my head. I go to sleep and your voice is still in the room. She bit her lip hard. You're the only place I've felt calm in months. That should mean something. It does, she said. But life isn't built on what we feel in a quiet room. Her voice cracked, just enough. I can't promise you anything, she said. I'm not clean. I'm not free. I still check if he's home before I let myself exhale. I nodded slowly. I don't need clean. I need real. She looked like she was holding something back. Then, I almost kissed you that night. I know. And when you said you could have loved me, she paused. I already did. I just couldn't admit it. The heater hummed louder. Or maybe the room had just gotten quieter. We stared at each other. A silence full of permission and doubt, and 1,000 things we hadn't said in time. Then she stood. Slowly. I don't know where this leads, she said. But if I walk out now, I'll never forgive myself. She reached for the door. And paused. Didn't turn around. Just stood there, hand on the handle. Are you coming with me? I didn't move. Not yet. My pulse thundered in my ears. She didn't look back. But she waited. And I knew, whatever I chose next, nothing would be the same. She didn't speak when I caught up to her. Just looked at me, eyes soft, but swollen, like she'd already run every possible ending in her head and none of them let us stand like this. I don't know what I'm doing, she said. Me neither, I replied. But I'm here. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. The next few days weren't magical. They were messy. Uncertain. Quiet. We sat at opposite ends of her couch most nights, talking too much, then not enough. She made tea she didn't drink. I offered to leave more than once. She never let me. I found a rhythm in her life that didn't belong to me, the open books on her kitchen table, the notes on her fridge in handwriting that wasn't mine. And still, she asked me to stay. One evening I stood in her doorway with my duffel bag packed. Not because I was leaving, but because I needed her to see the choice. This isn't your responsibility, she said. It's not, I nodded. It's my decision. She crossed the room slowly, one step at a time, like something in her might still break if she moved too fast. When she reached me, she didn't speak. Just rested her forehead gently against my chest. Her hands clutched my sides like she didn't trust herself to let go. I'm not afraid of what this is, I said into her hair. Only of what it could have been if we hadn't tried. She pulled back just enough to look at me. There was no tension in her face. No hesitation. Just a peace I hadn't seen before. A week later I unpacked. Not all at once, drawer by drawer, a shirt here, a toothbrush there. We weren't rushing. We didn't need to. She kept calling it temporary. I let her. Because some things only settle in when you stop pushing. Now, most mornings, we sit by the bookstore window before she opens. Her hand finds mine without thinking. No words. No fear. Just shared silence. She still checks her phone sometimes. Still hesitates when talking about next year. And I still watch her like I'm trying to memorize how peace looks on her. But we're here. Together. And that's more than I ever let myself hope for.